Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to this Thursday, January 18th, 2024. It is about 11:48 a.m. here, California time. Latest activity shows a 3.2 across the Mediterranean area and also a looks like a 1.7 in Alaska. We'll get to this activity here in just a little bit. Right now, looking at a live overview of the town of Grindavik, Iceland here in the background, where all the lights are up and running. The lava field here from the recent fissure activity in the darker regions. Still seeing some hot spots out there. It does take a little while, even though it's cold up there. It does take a little while for all those hot spots to solidify and, calm down. There is a fissure activity there going into Grindavik. That's that secondary fissure. Well, things look calm for right now. We are still seeing some earthquake activity, specifically around the Grindavik area and in and around the area that's seen the most recent fissure activity here, just north of Grindavik. So no major swarm uptick. So far, we got about, looks like 47 earthquakes in total here across the area of Iceland. And as you can see in Grindavik, a handful of earthquakes here just north of the town itself. Still kind of watching this, keeping an eye on things. The latest tilt meter out here in terms of the Svartsengi area shows that we're still on the rise here. This is the upward movement, vertical displacement here, going up and up and up. So we're still looking at the potential of some further activity here down the road. I don't know exactly how far down the road it will be, but it's coming, I feel. Far as any informational statement there from the Icelandic Meteorological Office, this update was put out today. Still states that the land rise continues near the Svartsengi area. As reported in the news yesterday, clear signs of land rise persist beneath the Svartsengi area. It's still too early to determine the rate of uplift due to the recent volcanic activity in the region. So they're kind of studying everything, reviewing, evaluating. It's obviously a comprehensive assessment of the situation, as they state here. These guys are reporting 200 earthquakes have been recorded near the magma area since yesterday, with the largest measuring a 1.4. Either way, it looks like earthquake activity is persisting, but not quite as intense as what we've seen here in the past. But due to the elevated GPS out there, the elevated land rise, there's still a significant risk in Grindavik due to potential eruptive fissures. And not only that, but the cracks and whatnot out there as well. The possibility for ground collapse. So a little scary out there, but this is an event that's in the making, so to speak. Here we can't close the chapter yet on this book, as long as we have the elevated inflation activity continuing around the region. There's that threat that we'll see more eruptive fissure activity open up here around the Grindavik area. I don't think we're out of the woods yet, folks. All right, earthquake activity here over the last 24 hours here from the USGS. Start off here in the California area, lighten up slightly across the plate boundary itself. A little bit up north here and a little bit down south here. Southern end is a little bit more concerning because this is where the 8.1 earthquake will take place. In the future, they've been chatting about this for many, many years now, as far as California seeing the big one, and we're still waiting for it. The thing is, the longer we wait, the bigger it could be potentially. Geologists believe that this area of the plate boundary, the San Andreas Fault, is capable of seeing an 8.1 upon full rupture here. All right, but today just looks like, I'm sure, a beautiful day down there in Southern California. Some small earthquake activity, a little bit on the north side or the Pacific side of the plate boundary, and a little bit on the North American side, right around this bend area where the strain tends to stress. So we'll keep an eye on that. But for now, just some microquake activity. And there's a little bit of movement here up just south of the Bay Area, 2.4. Nothing big, no unusual swarms, just typical plate boundary activity in the microquake range. Some smaller quake activity around Mount St. Helens. Got a 2.1. That's well east here of the Mount St. Helens area. Looks like that's at Mount Adams. Goodness. 5 kilometers deep. Haven't really seen too much activity over there across Mount Adams. I'm kind of curious. Let's go check that out real quick and see what's going on over there. Mount Adams. Yeah, that's what I thought. This is that volcano area that doesn't have a whole lot of monitoring stations here, so that's a big disappointment. They do have one down here, well southwest of the area. Let's see if this one's even shown anything. I'm sure if that 2.1 was around this area, it should show up fairly nicely. Give it a second here. When was that? 2.1 was at 14:14, so that was yesterday on the 17th. Potentially this earthquake right here, I believe, 14 something right here. Aside from that, looks like maybe today there was a handful of maybe some smaller quake activity as well. These could be ice quakes. A lot of that stuff looks like some type of ice buildup. But really no major swarming. Just a little unusual to see activity stirring up here across this area. It's been a while since I've seen any earthquake activity here across Mount Adams. Most of the movement has been at Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, and occasionally down in Mount Hood as far as earthquake swarming goes. But for now, just at 2.1 there around Mount Adams and Yellowstone over here. Doesn't look like a whole lot of activity. I just checked out the Yellowstone overview, which is going to be right here from this site called isthisthingOn.org. Fairly neat layout. Instead of going to every single station to see what's going on there across Yellowstone, this website has it nicely laid out in a format here to where we can see the locations of the seismograph stations, and they're all viewable. And the earthquake activity looks like it's non-existent out here today. This was wind events here from last night and into early this morning. It lasted for a little bit and then it died off. All right, what else we got here across the rest of the states? Oklahoma still seeing some movement out here, and a little bit down in Texas as well. This area around Snyder, Texas, big time. Well, maybe not as big time as certain areas, but they do have some huge oil fields out here west of this activity. But around this movement today where the twos are kicking off, you can see these oil fields littered out here in the land. One very close to, this may be an older pumping operation out here, but here's a newer one with some tanks on it, and a wastewater disposal pond. And yeah, there's quite a few of these out here. Each one's got a little wastewater pond. Either way, some earthquake activity out there in the oil fields, and they're marked out here nicely. All right, backing out of this area, nothing going on across the eastern portion of the country for now. The other area of interest is going to be out here across the Big Island in terms of volcano activity. The latest earthquake shows, 2.5 way out here, away from the Big Island, underneath the Pacific Plate here, probably due to the stress of the Hawaii Islands there on the Pacific Plate. 16 kilometers deep for that 2.5. As far as the Kilauea volcano goes, last night we were looking at, they were having some issues there with their website. Let's see what's going on. It still looks like they're having some issues. Not for sure exactly what's going on here, but there we go. Took a couple key ups there for some reason. Shouldn't do that. Technically it shouldn't. Either way, it looks like they're really slow. Let's just go over and check out the tilt meter here. I do have a link specifically for it. This is going to be at the summit region. And it looks like we're, starting to go back up here since last night. There's the 16th. Yeah, so it's going up, but it's not as high as what we had seen here in the past previous elevated inflation graphs here, these little marks on the graph. So either way, it's still, there we go. Took a little while to load up, not for sure why. So UWE right here. Here's the 2-day chart I'm looking for. Notice that since about last night, continuing to rise, but again, not as elevated as before, but we'll continue to watch that. A live look here around the area of the lava lake area of the summit still shows volcanic gases out here. Some days when it's cloudy and cold and moist, this volcanic gas activity will create a lot of condensation here, making it look a lot more dramatic than it really is. Right now, it doesn't look like it's all that, well, there's some clouds here in the background, but it doesn't look like it's all that cold up there. So minimal in terms of the view of these volcanic gases seeping up through the little cracks here at the summit region. No lava, no magma, no eruptive activity as of yet. And the latest information statement here from the HVO put out today, the 18th. The volcano is currently not erupting, and you know, it's basically the same thing that they've stated over and over again. So we're just kind of waiting game. All right, let's back out of here, go back to the USGS map and see what's going on in Alaska. It doesn't look like a whole lot. We do have some very small quakes here in the last hour or so, but really no major earthquake activity to report. Most of our movement today, I think we can see that on the Earthquake 3D globe as well, has been cluttered. Got a decent cluttering going on here. Pancake of activity across this area of the Indonesia Islands area. Right here in this spot. USGS showing a 5.2 and a 4.6 from earlier this morning. But there's definitely a lot more activity stirring up here in this region. So we'll keep an eye on that. It's a little decent swarm in that region. One earthquake up here, 4.5 west side of Japan. Looks like a fairly new earthquake up here. 10 kilometers deep or so for this earthquake. Struck about 10 o'clock my time here. Not a whole lot going on through the Kuril-Kamchatka for now. Getting some deeper activity. Yesterday out here in the Tonga Trench, it looks like we've seen one surface adjustment up here overnight. It's going to be a 5.0 just south of the Samoa area. About 8 o'clock this morning. Very shallow earthquake. And looks like New Zealand had a little bit of movement down here across the North Island area with some threes. Let's check that out real quick here. From the New Zealand site here, nzquakes.com. Looks like one of the strongest earthquakes here in the last 24 hours or so is going to be in the Kermadec Trench area, well north of the North Island area. Latest quake looks like a 3.5 in the green pin mark, still up there along the Kermadec Trench. As far as earthquake activity specifically here across New Zealand, I'm not really seeing anything major going on there. Just some typical movement that we normally see across that area. A quick glance here at some drums. Let me go over here real quick and see what we got across New Zealand real quick. Some of the activity is going to show up. The stuff up there along the Kermadec Trench will show up across North Island. But even so, it's not looking all that strong. There's a little earthquake here in the last 5 hours. It looks like local to the North Island area. A little bit of swarming over here near the Mavora Lakes, it looks like. Mavora Lakes. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. But generally small earthquake activity here just off the plate boundary, it looks like, in this area. So we'll continue to watch it. You know, just looks like a typical day here on this planet that we live on. We did see some further activity down here in the South Sandwich Trench, it looks like. 5.7 coming in. Earlier this morning, it looks like, about 4 o'clock or so. Yesterday did have a 5.3. So we're getting some adjustment going on here across a good segment of the South Sandwich Trench here. A subduction zone. This area did see an 8.1 a couple years back now. But we're still seeing some activity. It does pop from time to time here in terms of earthquake activity. So watch potentially the center portion. When we see activity on the north and south side, most of the time we'll see some adjustment take place here soon across the center portion, which just kind of makes sense there. South America here, let me zoom in, see what we got. Really not seeing too much activity here now across this area. Only some 2s and 3s. But aside from that, goodness, guess we'll just watch it and see how it plays out today in terms of earthquake movement. It's been somewhat quiet, right, in terms of earthquake activity, large-scale earthquake activity, in relation to the slowing down of space weather activity. We haven't really had a strong flare or large CME hit us in a while. And, looking at the earthquake map here, it's been kind of slow, too, in terms of larger scale movement. Let's check out the last 30 days here real quick. Or last 7 days. We'll go last 7 days. The largest magnitude, let's see, what's the largest magnitude? There's only a 5.9 up here across the Alaska area. Aside from that, mostly typical movement down here across Tonga and the areas around Japan. These were all some aftershocks here in this area following that 7.5 that struck there? Let's see, I keep forgetting the magnitude. Yeah, 7.5 back on the 31st. And it was the first in some areas, so it was an interesting way to start off the year with a big earthquake. And this 7.5 played along with the X flare, the X 5.0 that struck roughly around this time as well. So just kind of keeping a total tally in terms of, elevated earthquake activity along with elevated space weather activity. It could be large flares, large CMEs impacting the planet. And, the relationship between the two, which seems to be not 100% set in stone, but it seems to be, a very strong relationship between the two. And I've noticed that in the past, but there's been times where we've seen large earthquake activity and there's no space weather activity. But it does seem to spark a little trigger in terms of, what could trigger these larger quakes. They may be right on the brink, right, of producing a large earthquake, and all it takes is a little impact there to the planet. And, it does pressurize the plates out here, so to speak. High pressure does, low pressure does. I mean, space weather has to have an effect on the plate dynamics out here. So we're just kind of watching, waiting, seeing when we get some more larger space weather events, and I don't think we're going to see it anytime soon. Currently seeing a lot of nothingness in terms of flaring. We're just barely floating above the C flare category right now. Actually, I think we're in the B flare, B level. I don't even want to call that a flare. Way down here. So as you can see, things are fairly minimal for right now, and that is due to the not due to the sunspot numbers out here. There's a lot of sunspots, quite a few actually, but they are all relatively stable and behaving nicely. There's really not a whole lot of intermixing of the polarity of the sunspots. They are all fairly stable. I don't really see anything here Earth-facing side of the sun that would be promising in terms of producing any flaring. If I had to pick a region here, it might be this area up here. This is a newer regional sunspot coming around the northeastern limb. It's large, and it looks like it may have a little bit of close proximity here of these magnetic colors. We'll keep an eye on that one, and that is one of the newer names. Well, it's not even named yet. I thought they already named it, but it doesn't look like it's been named. But we'll check back on that. We'll watch that spot right there. Overall threat, 95% chance for C flare. M flare at 25% chance. X flare still shows 5%. I'm not for sure what's going on with that, but I don't, it's been that way for a little while. I don't think it's Kevin's fault because they still show it on other space weather sites as well. They're stating 3555 is having a beta gamma class here. And that's going to be, let's see, 3555. Well, that's going to be this region right here. Ooh, 3555. That's kind of odd. You click on that and it goes to an error. right here. It doesn't quite look as complex as what it did, though, when they put that underneath that category as a beta gamma. But I'm watching this one up here. If I had to pick one, if you twisted my arm and I had to pick one, that would be it. All right, nothing major coming up for the auroras. No CMEs headed our way. Really no coronal holes. We do have a little one up here, but that is not going to do anything at all. Number 93, it looks like, in terms of any effects here on Earth. All right, Storm Prediction Center, as far as weather goes, only a slight chance of, looks like maybe some thunderstorm activity here across Florida, but that's about it. Relatively stable map right now. Look at the current model from the GFS model. Still a lot of colder air, some snow flurries and whatnot, some lake effect snow up there around the Great Lakes, but really no setup right now for any type of severe weather. Our next system out here in California will be hitting us tomorrow, Friday, later in the day, and that's going to last pretty much all weekend out here. We got a series of storm systems coming into the West Coast, bringing with it some decent rainfall. And Southern California is going to get in on it as well. Look at that, some impressive rainfall rates down here. The first system looks to be generally Northern California, a rainmaker. The second one, Northern California, with a more defined area here in the south for heavier precipitation. Back over here, we do have some moisture pulling up from the south. That could be some severe weather potential out here. We'll keep an eye on that as we get closer to early next week. But as you can see, West Coast gets hit with probably about 3 systems or so. And as we head into February, that's a ways out. But I do like to check them and see what plays out. Looks like the south is going to get, or the Texas area is going to get in on some decent rainfall, not only this month, but potentially as we head into February as well. Rainfall accumulated rates out here in terms of what we expect for totals. Southern California, from those storm systems coming up this weekend, look like maybe 2 to 3 inches of rainfall around the San Diego area, a little bit less up in the Los Angeles region. Northern California going to get the brunt of it, and certain areas up in the mountains will, of course, see more than 3 inches, but it looks like roughly between 2 and 3 inches here across the area where I live, here in Chico, California. So that is good news. I'm ready for that. Need some more rain. I like it when everything stays green, because California summers out here, they can be brutal. I'm not even joking. Talking about 115, maybe 120 or so. We've seen it before, and we'll see it again. Last summer was a cooker. I'm not ready for those type of temperatures. All right, what else is there, folks? Anything major going on out here? Thursday, tomorrow's Friday. We definitely got the weekend coming upon us. And I'm not for sure what's going on with these. That's kind of weird. We are live. We're streaming. Solid connection. All right. Well, nothing major going on in the buoy world. We'll just kind of keep an eye on these earthquakes here. See if anything pops off. Click the wrong one. These two kind of look alike in the way. Live seismograph stations there. A little small spike of an earthquake there across the Southern California area, but that's a very small microquake. And the rest of the graphs out here look fairly calm for now, folks. So have yourself a wonderful Thursday. And we'll see you guys back here a little bit later on this evening. Take care.